I'm actually making my backlog get smaller. Sit back, relax. This is gonna be a chill one. So over the last 4 years, I've made some major headway in reducing my backlog on a lot of the games that have been coming out and the games that have been on there for years. And specifically this past year, I've figured out kind of a secret that I use to really push through these games. So stick around to the end to find out exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing I do to help alleviate the pressure of having a really large backlog is stop buying games. So I just stop looking on the eShops and stop getting on hype trains for new content. But I'm not saying that I don't buy new games at all. I'm just saying that I don't buy them at the rate that I used to buy them. And I actually try to sell some of my stuff or completely delete them off of hard drives if I have no intention of playing them. Sometimes you think that you're going to play something and then you bounce off of it because you realize that it's not for you. So that's part of reducing the backlog, is just admitting to yourself that you're not going to play this game ever. It's a difficult thing to do and to consider, simply because you feel like you've invested money into this thing and then you're wasting it if you don't play it. But it's good for your mental health to kind of let it go and know that, you know what, there's other things that I'm going to prioritize. There's other games that I want to spend my time playing, or at least find out if I do actually want to play them, rather than forcing myself to complete something that I'm not interested in anymore. And it's like, maybe at that time you were, but you can always learn from those, mistakes or those impulse buys where it's like, okay, well, everybody's talking about this game, and then you buy it and it sits on your backlog for years, and then you finally get to play it and you don't really enjoy it. Another thing that I've done is stop listening to reviewers. So journalists or other YouTubers who talk about video games. I've got burned a lot of times by being told and listening to content that said that games are a certain way, and then when I get them, I just feel like I was punked. Where it's like, this game, I don't agree with the rating that they gave it and the raving reviews that they gave it. Where it's like, I'll compare it to other games that I've beaten recently that are in that same genre, and I'm like, this doesn't even compare to it at all, and I feel really frustrated, like I got swindled. Like, this person sold their integrity to hype up this game in order to work with that company in the future. So I don't know if that's actually true or if I'm just creating that story in my head, but sometimes it feels that way. So decluttering your physical library and decluttering your digital library with games that you have no intention of playing, or games that you've beaten that you just look at all the time and like, well, I could go back and play that. If you're really serious about reducing your backlog, it's important that you kind of reduce the amount of time that you're spending playing games that you've already beaten or that you're not actually going to beat. But it's always good to have games that you can go back to. I typically like to play older Capcom games. Like, those are always going to be there, and I'm going to play those regularly because it's nice and therapeutic for me. So the next step is paying attention to how long video games are and what genre of video games they are that you're trying to take off your backlog. If you find yourself being a huge RPG fan or a JRPG fan in general, and sinking hundreds of hours into video games, 70, 80, 90, 130 plus hours into a specific video game, your backlog is going to get smaller at a slower rate than somebody who plays hour-long indie titles, 5-hour-long indie titles. Those are going to get burned through quicker, so you need to compare yourself to your genre and to the length of games that you are playing. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just interesting that I've noticed that I've spent, 100 hours playing Elden Ring, 100 hours playing an Assassin's Creed game, and I ended up not even beating it. Hundreds of hours into Animal Crossing. And it's like that game, Animal Crossing, is a good example because we need to pay attention when you're trying to take down a backlog to what you call complete, because sometimes an Animal Crossing game doesn't really have an ending. So it's like, if you play Animal Crossing and you're just gonna go, well, at around 100 hours, when I feel like that game is complete and I can take it off my backlog and it's a mental, completion that I'm feeling, it's good to just be like, okay, I hit 100-hour threshold. I feel like I've gotten into the routine. I understand all of the mechanics of this game. I'm just gonna call it quits, take it off my backlog, mark it as complete. There's no steadfast rule, especially with games that like don't really have credits rolling, and like it's not meant for you to finish, like online MMOs and things like that that are meant to take, a lot of time and commitment. It's like you need to decide when that threshold is in order to check it off and to feel like you've completed the game. So the final tip I have is what I like to refer to as genre massaging. I kind of took it from like credit massaging. Like if you're trying to get your credit score up, what you do is massage various accounts with minor balances on them, so it looks like you're using all of your credit throughout, which increases, the amount that banks are willing to give you each time. It's complicated, but this is simple because you just want to make sure that let's say you beat a 45-hour game and it took you a couple weeks. If you want to do another RPG that takes 100 hours, like you're gonna be feeling like you're a little bit slower, which is fine, like if that's what you want to do. Or you could take that 45-hour game, then go play like a 10-hour game, and it'll kind of even out that average there. So it's like 45 hours and I spent 10 hours, like you just knocked down 2 games, where if you did another 45-hour game, it would be, 90 hours that you would have spent as opposed to 55 to beat 2 games. So it's like, just be aware of the length and the genres of the games that you're playing. I typically like to play something, a modern, story-driven video game, finish that, then go back and play something smaller, like an indie title or like an older retro game that I'm trying to get through. And like fighting games, sometimes when you get better at those, you can get the credits to roll within a couple hours. So it's like you can do a 45-hour thing, then hit an older platformer game in a couple hours, then do an older fighting game in a couple hours, and now you've done 3 games in about 50 hours instead of the one game for 45 and then another game for another 45, meaning 90. So it's trying to massage the genres that you're playing and the types of games that you're playing in order to feel that you're actually making progress on your backlog, and then being able to take those off the backlog. And I keep a journal of the games that I beat and the dates that I beat them, and I got the credits to roll. So it's a therapeutic way and a helpful way to make sure that you feel like you're progressing through your backlog and taking things off. And then by not putting more things on at such a high rate, you are actually making it go smaller and become smaller. But yeah, that is all I have to say. My backlog stressed me out for a while. I started focusing on not putting new stuff in it and eliminating the things that I was never going to play, but I was convincing myself that I would. And then also being aware of the genres and the length of the video games and making the decisions to kind of alternate genres and alternate durations of games to really get those credits to roll. Thanks for tuning in.